We continue now at the top of Daf Tesamad Aleph and Meseches Shevuos. This is Shevuos Daf 9a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara was discussing what the Mishnah said with regards to the Sar Hanasa Bifnim and the Sar Hanasa B'chutz. Again, we said that the Sar Hanasa Bifnim, was the one that was done together with the Sar LaAzazel. You had the Sar LaHashem and the Sar LaAzazel, and the Sar LaHashem is called the Sar Hanasa Bifnim, the goat that is brought inside on Yom Kippur. And so that is mechaper in a situation. Let's say there was Yediyah B'tchila, but there was no Yediyah B'sof. The person realized they were Tameh, and then there was Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashav. Either they ate Kodesh or they entered the Beis HaMikdash Tameh, but they never were aware. There was that lapse of awareness that they were Tameh, and then they never found out they actually committed the sin. So there we say that the Sar Hanasa B'fnim, it protects the person, and when he does find out that he committed that Avera, so then he will bring the carbon Ola V'yored. And then there's the Sar Hanasa B'chutz. The Sar Hanasa B'chutz is essentially a carbon Musaf that was brought on Yom Kippur, and so that is for the reverse situation. Let's say you have a situation where there was no Yediyah B'tchila, the person wasn't even aware of the Tumah, they commit the Avera, and then there is Yediyah Basof, so then we say that the Sar Hanasa B'chutz is Mechaper. And the Gemara in the previous Amud asked, well, why don't we say that either one of these, is able to be Mechaper, let's say, for both scenarios? And the Gemara brought a drasha, and here the Gemara is concluding that drasha. Ela Achas Bashon, it says it's just one time a year, meaning each one of these situations, each one of these Seirim, as Rashi explained in detail in the previous Amud, is only going to be Mechaper on one situation. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Ulu Rabbi Yishmael. Now, according to Rabbi Yishmael, the Amar Ein Ba Yediyah Betchila V'yesh Ba Yediyah Basof. Rabbi Yishmael holds that, let's say there was no knowledge in the beginning. Again, the person was never aware of the Tumah, but then at the end there is knowledge. He finds out that he committed this Avera in terms of Tumas Mikdash V'Kadashav. So Rabbi Yishmael happens to hold that Bar Karbanhu, that in such a situation you actually do bring a carbon in that case. So according to Rabbi Yishmael, Sar Hanasa B'chutz Amay Mechaper. So what is the Sar Hanasa B'chutz? Again, that's the Sar that's essentially a carbon musaf, one of the carbon musafin of Yom Kippur. What is that going to be mechaper on if you already have a carbon in that situation? And so the Gemara continues and answers, Al she'ein ba yediyah lo b'tchila v'lo b'sof. According to Rabbi Yishmael, we're going to have to say that the Sar Hanasa B'chutz provides a kapara in a situation where there's no yediyah whatsoever. There's no knowledge of the sin whatsoever, not in the beginning and not at the end. But the Gemara continues, how can that be? Hai se'irei haragolim u'se'irei rashi chadashim mechaper. And we said in the Mishnah that if there's no yediyah whatsoever, then it's the goats that are brought on the regel, on the holidays, the other holidays, or the goats that are brought on Rosh Chodesh. Those are the ones that are mechaper for a situation with no yediyah whatsoever. And so therefore, how can we say, according to Rabbi Yishmael, that it's the Sar Hanasa B'chutz that provides this kapara? And the Gemara answers to that, Savar Laka Rabbi Meir. We will say that Rabbi Yishmael holds like Rabbi Meir, that's this sheet of Rabbi Meir was mentioned in the Mishnah. The Yamar that Rabbi Meir says, Kol hasi'irim kaparosan shove al tumas mikdash v'kadashav. When it comes to all of the goats, they have an equal kind of kapara, an equal atonement when it comes to tumas mikdash v'kadashav. And Rashi explains kaparosan shove, if they're all providing the exact same kapara, so then what do you need them all for? V'nafkamina l'tumah she'ira bein zel lazel. Let's say there was tumah that was between one and the other. You brought one of the karbanos, so now some tumah happens. So now the next carbon that comes up is going to provide a kapara for that avera. And the Gemara continues still, but according to all of this, so for what purpose was the Sar Hanasa B'chutz? Why was it compared to the Sar Hanasa B'fnim? Because again, according to what we said earlier, the reason why there is a comparison between the Sar Hanasa B'chutz and the Sar Hanasa B'fnim is to say that there has to be at least some kind of yediyah. But now we're saying within the view of Rabbi Yishmael that the Sar Hanasa B'chutz is actually mechaper when there's no yediyah whatsoever. So what is the purpose of the comparison between the chitzon and the pnimi? And the answer to that is ma pnimi eno mechaper b'shar averos. Just like the pnimi is not mechaper by other kinds of averos, meaning it's reserved. The kapara is reserved for Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav. Av chitzon eno mechaper b'shar averos. So to the chitzon the same thing. It's not mechaper by other averos. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Al she'ein ba yediyah betchila v'lo b'sof. If there's no knowledge in the beginning or the end of the tumah, the person has no awareness of the avera that was committed in terms of tumas mikdash v'kadashav. So then se'irei regolim hu se'irei rashi chodashim mechaprin. Then the goats that are brought on the regel and the goats that are brought on Rosh Chodesh, they provide the kapara for those averos. Divrei Rav Yehuda, these are the words of Rav Yehuda. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, my time with Rav Yehuda. What's the reason of Rav Yehuda? What's the source? source that the Seirei Regalim and the Seirei Roshei Chodashim provide this kapara, and the Gemara brings the source in terms of the Rosh Chodesh Seirim. Amar Kratz, because the pasuk says Useir izim echad lechatos laHashem, and so we darshan. It says it should be a chatos for Hashem. What does that mean? It means chet she'ein makir bo el Hashem. It means if you have a chet that only Hashem knows about, there's no awareness in the situation, then yehei sor zemachaper. Then this sor will be a kapara for that situation. But the Gemara continues and asks, "V'haimi boy leilachid Reish Lakish." But this pasuk of lechatos laHashem, it's needed for Reish Lakish's teaching. The Yom Reish Lakish, because Reish Lakish says, "Manishtana seir shel Rosh Chodesh." What is different about the goat that is brought on Rosh Chodesh and nemar bo laHashem, that it says the word laHashem? Why does it use that word over there? Amar Hakadosh Baruch Hu, it's because Hakadosh Baruch Hu says, "Seir zeh yehei kapara," that this goat should be an atonement. Al shemiyatati yasirech, because I diminished the moon, and so therefore that's what laHashem is for. So how can you say that laHashem is to say that it's a kapara for a sin that there's no awareness of? And the Gemara continues and answers him, Kain lemakra al Hashem. If that's what it was teaching, it should have said al Hashem. My la Hashem, why does it say la Hashem l'chida amron? Again, it means it's a kapara for this tumas mikdash v'kadashav. But the Gemara continues, v'yema kulei l'hachi udasa. But if that's the case, so then the entire thing should just be for that. How do we know this other idea of al shemiyatati asireach? And to that the Gemara says, Im kain name chatos Hashem. If so, it should have just said chatos Hashem. My la Hashem. Why does it specifically say chatos la Hashem? So shamat min atarti. So then you see both of them. Again, you see both the ideas that it should be a kapara al shemiyatati asiyareach, and you also see the idea again that it should be a kapara for situations of tumas mikdash v'kadashav where there's no yediyah whatsoever. And the Gemara continues, "V'nechaper nami afila b'shar averos." Well, still, why do we say that the Seir Rosh Chodesh, that it should be a kapara for other averos? Why specifically Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav? And the Gemara answers to that. Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel, it was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel. Hoel v'zeba bisman kavua, since this is brought at a set time, that's referring to the Seir Yom HaKippurim, the Seir HaChitzon of Yom HaKippurim, which is also a carbon musaf, since that comes at a set time. V'zeba bisman kavua, and also the Seir of Rosh Chodesh, it also comes at a set time. Maze eino mechaper ela al Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav, just like this is only providing kapara for Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav, so avzeh, so to this, meaning so to the Seir Rosh Chodashim, it's eino mechaper ela al Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav. It's providing an atonement only for Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav. And the Gemara continues, Eshkechon Seirei Rosh Chodashim. So we find the source now that Seirei Rosh Chodashim, they provide this kapara. We understand the source for Reb Yehuda. But Seirei Hargalim Minalim, but where do we know the Seirim that are brought on the holidays? How do we know those provide the same atonement? Now maybe you'll say it's also the same as what Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel just said, that it's Bab is Man Kavua. Once it's Bab is Man Kavua, so it provides this kapara. But we can refute that and say, because Idem Imi de Rosh Chodesh Shekain Tadr, maybe it's only by Rosh Chodesh, because that's more frequent. You can't necessarily derive to the Regalim. And Ibid Yom HaKippurim, if you're going to try to learn from Yom Kippur, so Shekain Meruba Kapara, so there's a lot of kapara when it comes to Yom Kippur, and so therefore again you cannot learn to the Regalim. Rashi explains, Meruba kapara shel Yom HaKippurim. The kapara of Yom HaKippurim is great. Shu mechaper al kol averos. That's a kapara on all averos. Tomar b'regalim, you should say the same thing by regalim. V'yafagav d'chsibu lechaper emo lo mechapri amidi do'avan kares. Maybe you'll say again, it doesn't provide a kapara on something which is a sin of a kares level. And the Gemara continues, v'chigtema, and if you're going to say, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tes Amid Beis.